Hey, everybody. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 27 Club, but it's this idea that more celebrity deaths happen at age 27 than any other age. Some people have speculated that there is a curse at the age of 27, which is scary because that's how old I am right now. But I guess it only works for celebrities, though, so I should be okay. Now, for one thing, I don't even know if it's true that more celebrities lose their lives at that age. It could be that we notice more often when somebody dies at 27 rather than, say, 87. That's an example of the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, by the way. Look that up. Or it could be a number of non-supernatural reasons why we see so many famous people losing their lives at that age. But if you believe in curses, then you should definitely call us because the show is starting right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Objectively Dan, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you'd like to call us, you can certainly do that. We've got some open lines right now. It's 512-991-9242, or you can call with your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. And as always, Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And we also want to welcome all of our viewers who are watching on Twitter and Twitch today, and of course, give all the love to the folks watching on the OG YouTube. So thank you guys so much for that. And of course, I need to give a special thanks to our guest that's joining us today. This week's guest is J.L. Warren. JL, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate it. I'm excited.
Good. Glad that you're here, and we are ready to get the ball rolling. JL, we're going to talk a little bit more in just a second, but before we do, we have to read last week's We Want the Truth segment, our WWTT segment. So last week, we asked our audience, what is your favorite random fact? And here were our favorites. We're going to start with number 3 that comes from Phil, who says, favorite random fact, Saturn is weird. Not only does it have huge rings, it has a huge hexagonal cloud around its north pole and 2 of its moons. Janus and Epimetheus regularly swap their orbits, not organs. They don't have organs, but orbits. That makes more sense. And there's a bonus random fact. Phobos and Deimos orbit Mars so closely that if you're close enough to either of the Martian poles, they're permanently below the horizon. And I think that counts as a cool, fun fact. Yeah, would you say
that
so?
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's something new. I definitely didn't know about any of that. Number 2 comes from Jen Graham, who says, random fact, in the UK, it's illegal to be carrying salmon in a suspicious fashion. And yeah, I say salmon, by the way. I know people say salmon. There's a salmon debate. But personally, my stance is I don't give. So there we go. By the way, soundboard's back, baby. Bringing back the soundboard. It took me a minute to pull that one out, but I gotta make use of this thing. I paid $20 of my own money. Okay, the ACA did not pay for this. This is all on me, and I gotta make use of whatever I can do with any of these sounds. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the thing. Our number 1 comment comes from Allegedly Human, who says, random fact, Oxford University predates the Aztec Empire, which really? That's kind of crazy. I did not know that. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's almost hard to put together, but I don't. I mean, I have to look into that. That's kind of neat. I need to get more info on that.
I didn't pick the comments this week. I usually don't, actually. And so I hope that whoever picked them this week, fact checked on this one, because I don't want to give out fake news. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But anyway, that's not even a good sound effect to use for that.
I'm kind of bummed they did that. I'm kind of bummed they didn't pick my comment. That might be because I'm the guest, but I actually commented as well with my favorite random fact.
What was your favorite random fact? What did you comment?
That wombats poop cubes.
Oh yeah, I think I have heard that before. Yeah, wombats.
I found that out and was just like, what?
Yeah, I could totally see that. That is a weird random fact. So thank you to everybody who donated your random facts last week in the comments section. I said donated because we have a super chat right off the bat I wasn't expecting that. It's from Johnny Fill in the Blank, who's given $2.22, who says, Don ain't a real celeb, so he'll get a cold at 27. And you know what? You, Johnny. You really hard. I know I'm not a real celebrity. I didn't say I was. I'm at the age of 27. So I think that puts me in the club at some point. I don't know if like micro internet people that some people watch counts as being part of the club, but there it is. So JL, we have a new prompt for this week.
Ooh, yes.
And this one is a fun one. It's complete the sentence. Hardest part about being a ghost is blank. And I know you already have an answer. So what do you think? What's the hardest part about being a ghost?
The hardest part about being a ghost is sadly realizing that now you can only watch.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Hold that for just a second. There we go. All right, there we go. I had to find it. I'm sorry, it took me a little minute. I gotta get used to this a little bit more. But like I gotta get my money's worth. Okay. But anyway, that's a good one. I like that. Folks, give your best comments below. The hardest part about being a ghost is blank. And fill in the blank, obviously. And we will get to your comments next week. And now we're gonna talk to you, JL Warren. JL, what's going on?
Not much. It's been a busy week. But I am so glad that it was just, it was fortuitous. I had this opening and I was like, yes. And, this is such an amazing, opportunity and any chance to help. So I was totally excited and just kind of like, I'm trying not to like, fanboy out a little bit because you're a celebrity to me.
No, stop. Stop and don't inflate my ego, please. Please don't. Please, because for every comment like you that makes it, then there's the Johnnies of the world that will completely tear it down. And I don't want to be in the middle of that. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm glad that you get to be here. JL, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a YouTuber. You're an activist. Who's the real JL Warren?
Oh, well, it began on a quiet day in 30, but no, that was yes, I do YouTube content. I have my channel, Bridge the Divide, and I pretty much address irrational beliefs and the irrational behaviors that often follow, and how we can use education, rationality, and reason to bridge the societal divides that these things often create. As far as like, my activism, I tend to focus locally, so in my local community and addressing things that that are going on in my state government, because I'm here in Oklahoma, so there's a number of things going on, and I try to be a positive presence because where I live, there's not much of an atheist community. So I've tried to step forward and be kind of like the change you want to see in the world, and to have these conversations with because there's just not a lot of people out here doing it. So I took that opportunity, and I've been focusing on my channel, doing reaction commentary and addressing the claims that certain individuals make. And I think I think I've had a pretty good positive effect going so far, trying to find ways that we can look at how some individuals take advantage of the public and take advantage of other people for money and grifting, and making people aware, spreading awareness of these things, which is the general focus.
So when you're talking about irrational beliefs, what kind of beliefs are you talking about? What's cooking on your channel?
Okay, so obviously beliefs that are predicated on things like feelings and making truth claims about reality, based upon whether it might be the psychological or the emotional utility that one finds for things, but obviously have no demonstrable evidence, no good evidence for them. So that would be what I would classify into the irrational category, where it's just kind of like, it makes you feel good like that, but this is not a reason to go forward into the world and start proclaiming this is the truth about the situation. So
if I make a YouTube video and I say nachos are the greatest food mankind's ever made, are you going to make a response video like tearing me down and saying, actually, that's not true because of science? Like, what are you going to do with that?
It's going to depend upon what you're putting on those nachos.
Okay. All right. I see you. All right. Well, moving on from that, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the world, right? Like a lot of more serious stuff than just nacho stuff. Like I would say big deal sort of issues that are going on. A lot of claims being made. What are some of the big deal stuff that you're talking about right now?
So one of the big thing that I'm focusing on right now is the apparent influence, or the growing, I would say, the growing movement to influence our education on both a national and a local and national level by, I would say, alt-right Christian Christian nationalist groups. There is an overwhelm, I would say, almost this big movement for these like really fundamentalist, these really, grossly fundamentalist groups to influence our school boards by, jumping into local elections and then replacing these individuals. And so they can then drive the curriculums of these, area schools to push a particular, whether they call it a Judeo-Christian agenda or any particular kind of like religious agenda. And that has no place, in my opinion, in the way I understand the Establishment Clause, has no place in publicly funded schools. This is why there are religious funded private schools that are religiously funded, and they can teach those things there, but not in our public education, not where our tax dollars go. And so, but I'm seeing that everywhere. And most recently here where I am, the superintendent of our education, superintendent of instruction, has recently partnered with PragerU. And so to teach kind of like
Prager University,
yes,
highly esteemed, highly acclaimed, accredited university, world recognized.
Prager, not a U. But they have this PragerU Kids platform that they are pushing this history curriculum that they want to teach kids in grade school, and that's like up through high school, and it is to nutshell it, it's absolutely atrocious. And our states have very, very rich and diverse histories, and there are important events that we cannot deny took place. And once we start doing that, obviously those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. And that's essentially what they want to do. They want to push this particular vision, this idealistic vision of America, the shining city on the hill, and ignore the darker aspects. But those all go to inform who we are. And our students, our children, need to understand these things, to understand where they come from and understand their history. And they don't want that. They want their version. And they're doing our children a grave disservice. So that's something that I think is really important.
For folks who are living under a rock, just to give some context, right? PragerU, if you haven't heard of this, is a YouTube channel. It's not a university. That was started by a guy named Dennis Prager, who is a talk show host. And I believe that is his only credentials that are relevant to the matter. Now, I will tell you this as a call-in show host. You can't trust talk show hosts because they're shifty and they're very crafty in nature. And don't trust call-in show hosts either, by the way. But talk show hosts, that's the next step up. If there are like rings and layers to hell, we have like regular Twitch streamers and then like call-in show hosts like me. And then there's the talk show host. The mainstream publication guys, don't trust those guys. So anyway, that's Dennis Prager. He has this YouTube channel and has gotten a lot of support from it. And it's been like, hey, let's make this actual curriculum, actually, this whole YouTube stuff. Now, to be fair, when I was in high school, like Hank Green and the Green brothers were picking up, and I definitely had some classes that from history that were taught to be like AP history that were taught to be from YouTube. But as far as I'm aware, those were like researched and like highly produced and were made really well. And that was like syndicated by like the PBS, I think.
Right.
Like I think it's like actually hooked up with these major broadcasting networks and not just like an independent YouTube channel. Dennis Prager in PragerU, as far as I know, is just like Dennis Prager's like business. There there's some foundation behind it or something, but it's not run by educators, I don't think.
No, not at all. It's not by any stretch of the imagination. Just they have this sanitized vision of American history. They want to ignore all the dark parts, and they want to not just ignore them, but they want to reimagine them in ways that are just so, for lack of a better term, they're just obscene. And ignoring the plights of the minorities that were affected by these events. And I don't want to go into too much detail. People understand what I'm talking about here. And we just can't allow that. We just can't do that. If they want to have their own little YouTube thing and spread their, I'm going to call it lies. They're going to spread their lies. They want to do that. go ahead, do your YouTube channel, freedom of speech, do whatever you want, but not where we're putting our tax dollars. That can't happen. So, the push against that is something that's really important to me and something that I'm heavily involved in.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of places like this is a strategy, right? Where folks will be like, "Hey, here's a curriculum that you can get for cheap and sometimes even donated or like heavily discounted. So it's not as pricey as some other kinds of stuff you can get. And there's all these kinds of incentives that you can get for picking up, this kind of curriculum for different school districts. In Texas, we had a similar deal, right? Where a lot of the textbook industry, lots of folks trying to get stuff to say like, Moses was actually a real person, by the way. And also, evolution is, it's more of a hot topic. We should like teach the controversy. I mean, like this stuff isn't new, right? It's been happening for a couple of decades. The new thing is, well, now it's like YouTube stuff. Now it's not just like textbooks. It's like even more curriculum can be replaced by just private individuals that have their own political agenda, which is really sad to see. So don't like it. And I'm glad that you're talking about it. But what is some other stuff? What's some of the more out there stuff you've been talking about on your channel?
So I really, as far as like out there stuff, I haven't really gone to super out there. So like, obviously there are conversations going on like in the nation about like aliens and stuff. And, whether, they're real or they're made of cake. So, or paper mache, but if the Mexico aliens that I'm talking about.
Right.
But as far as like out there stuff, just not a whole bunch, because I predominantly focus on philosophy, and especially when people out there, the talking heads that are out there completely butcher philosophy and have no idea what they're talking about. So I typically go down those roads. But I haven't really had the opportunity to address things like conspiracy theories because I don't know what it is. I don't feel drawn to that, because like anything from flat earth to anti-vax to the sovereign citizen movement, First Amendment frauditors and stuff like that. I mean, it's such a crazy field, and I wouldn't know where to begin. And I feel more compelled to go in there. Maybe I should diversify my content a little bit. Maybe I should go into that.
Maybe we'll get some calls today that will inspire you to go down that route. I don't know. Let's see. But folks, this is a call-in show, so I think we should talk to some of the callers. What do you think, JL?
Bring it on.
All right, cool. Let's do it. Before we do, JL, we always have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing crew. Not actually, because that happens at the end of the show. What we need to thank is the patrons. I'm getting my lines mixed up. The patrons of this show, the ones who donate and make this show happen, are the ones that we always give a shout out to. We always give a shout out to at least one patron every week. We call him the patron of the week. And this week's patron of the week is going to be Stefan von den Berg. Thank you so much, Stefan. And thank you to everybody who donates on the Patreon. You guys rock. Remember, 100% of that goes to the atheist community of Austin. I don't get any of that. JL doesn't get any of that. And most of our volunteers, well, all of our volunteers don't get any of that. That helps the ACA support its mission and make awesome content. So thank you to everybody who donates on there. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take our first call. We got Tim, longtime caller. Tim coming back again from Washington State. Tim, I always love talking to you. What do you got for us today?
How you doing, Dan? Good to talk to you. I get a rare occasion to call in. I wanted to talk about Project 2025, and it's interesting that JL mentioned something that was pretty close to this. Project 2025 is really scary to me. A bunch of far-right think tanks have banded together to change our nation into something that is more like a Christian nationalist theocracy, and getting rid of any rights for women, getting rid of any rights for my community, the LGBTQ plus community, and just really kind of turning our nation into Christian Sharia law, essentially. And and it's really scary and something that needs to be pushed back against before it actually becomes a real thing. Right now, I think it's more in the development stage and the talking stage, but sadly, it's gaining traction, particularly among the more conservative Christian nationalists that we have in our nation. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that and bring that up because it is scary as hell.
It is really scary. Just to give a bit more context, because this popped up on my radar this week. I think it's been kind of making the rounds at places. But Project 2025 is this sort of plan. It's like a really long document, I think, right? I think it's like a couple hundred pages or something. Like
it's almost 1,000 pages.
Is it really 1,000 pages? Okay, yeah. I haven't actually looked at it myself. I've only read what other people have summarized about it. I probably should do the work and figure out what exactly it says. But if you're familiar with things like the wedge strategy, I was just talking about the textbooks stuff, right? Back in the 80s and 90s and earlier. The wedge strategy was this idea of like trying to get intelligent design put into schools, right? And it's this sort of this plan made with a coalition of different groups to try to get this agenda put forth. It's kind of like that. Project 2025 is sort of the end result of Republican, specifically Trumpist policies, right? What would happen if there's a Republican government, in 2025? What are the steps to do that? This is being led by a group called the Heritage Foundation, which, if you've read anything about conservative politics, you've probably heard about the Heritage Foundation. They've funded a lot of, these kinds of things before, and a lot of stuff. Now, I need to address, before I talk about this any further, I am talking as a host of the atheist community of Austin. It does not represent the views of the atheist community of Austin, not necessarily my views don't, and also as a nonprofit, right? As a publication of the nonprofit, we can't tell you guys who to vote for or any of that kind of stuff, right? Because unlike churches, we like to follow the law and report things at the end of the year on our taxes. Okay, so we'd like to keep our nonprofit status. So my commentary on it is going to be limited to that effect. That being said, I think anybody who has a set of eyes can see that the ideas put here are bad and are obviously are set to ruin lives, right? Specifically disenfranchised folks, as you've mentioned, the LGBTQ plus community, women's rights, children. You name it. It's going to hurt everybody. And us, even just as plain old atheists, right? If you don't have any other minority labels, if you call yourself an atheist, it's going to affect you, because this is going to really influence policy on a federal level. Tim, I think you're talking. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's when I was looking at it and kind of gathering all the information that I have gathered so far, it's almost as if what they want to do is they want to make the fictional tale of A Handmaid's Tale into a reality, and they don't realize that A Handmaid's Tale was essentially kind of a parable. I don't think she meant it that way, but when she wrote it, but it's essentially kind of a parable about what could happen, but it's not a blueprint as to where society needs to go. It's a fiction. It's a dystopian society, and it's supposed to be fiction. It's not supposed to be a blueprint to where we need to go in our society. But yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, lots of stuff on this. And also, I didn't even address like climate change is a part of this whole thing, right? Bills that are going to be protecting companies that don't benefit to helping the climate, right? I mean, like there's all kinds of stuff that really get into this. But I think what I was hearing earlier, Tim, was that you were on speakerphone. So if you could not be on speakerphone while talking, that'd be awesome. But JL, I want to hear your thoughts, because I know you're probably aware of this. Project 2025. Have you heard about this?
So actually, I hadn't heard about it yet. I hadn't heard about it by that name. So apparently, Project 2025, the presidential transition project, is what that is. And and of course, like you mentioned, run by the Heritage, set up by the Heritage Foundation. And I'm looking further into it now. I was not aware of how deep this was rooted. I was kind of like tangentially aware of it because of the efforts of a number of small companies that especially in Texas, because in Texas right now you have the combined efforts of Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Rafael Cruz, who is Ted Cruz's dad, and they aligned with a company called Patriot Mobile. And Patriot Mobile was doing this exact same thing, is that they were setting up small groups to go and take over local school boards in order to start influencing education in that way. And get essentially a part of what Project 2025 is doing is getting people in the right places so that when the next conservative administration comes in, they can start enacting policies that will get federal support. So I was only kind of tangentially aware of it. So I saw the effects of what was going on, like the slow build of what they're trying to get to. But this is the first time I'm hearing of like what the root of this thing is. So, and I am just glancing, I'm appalled at what they're aiming for.
Yeah. So the difference in what you're talking about, right? So there's been this push kind of by folks that you mentioned earlier, right? For local school board level kinds of changes and stuff. And that's definitely been an effective strategy as well. This is a federal plan, basically. This is saying, okay, if we have the House or if we have the presidency, right, what can we actually do to influence policy? And so like this is kind of like the plan that's being set out here. And again, it's supposed to be building this sort of broad coalition to make to take advantage of this new base of Christian nationalists, I guess. I can't believe that we're talking about Christian nationalists. Like I feel like whenever we talk about Christian nationalists, it's just like a couple of years ago, it was always about like people who lived up in the mountains in Oregon somewhere that like didn't have an effect on national discourse. And now it's like we're talking about it every week, and it's very frustrating, and I don't like it. So.
One thing I can say is that I would say on this is that I'm not surprised is that when you look at all of the studies that are coming out, and every time they do a major poll is coming out, we see a decline in essentially in Christianity's hold on this nation, but particularly in fundamental Christianity. So fundamentalism is definitely on the decline. Christianity as a whole is on the decline. Every single generation that you have, the next generation is just less and less and less. So when you back someone into a corner like this, obviously at some point they're going to stand up and they're going to start swinging back even harder because they got nowhere to go. It's fighting for their survival. I would say that actions like this are to be expected as the kind of like the things that are the death knell of Christianity, especially when it's projected by 2070 to be down to like a little over 30% in America. So we should expect to see similar things like this. Now, this whole 2025, it may go nowhere. Maybe they will. If we stay vigilant, maybe it won't. Maybe we can combat it with, having these conversations. But ultimately, I would say this may be the first, maybe the biggest, but I don't think it'll be the last.
No, definitely not the last. It's definitely not the first. But it is taking advantage of a cultural zeitgeist that's occurring right now, which is people who are still supporting the 45th president and the ideas that he represents, right? I really think like if it wasn't for that whole presidency, like plans like this wouldn't even be as out in the open as they are. But yeah, here we are. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I think I agree with you, but and unfortunately, it's not just the 45th president, but it's also members of the House and the Senate and state senates and houses in each of the states and some governors. I mean, we've got some really, really sadly Christian-leaning people in our government, irrespective of the fact that we are not supposed to have the religious influence in any of our laws or any of our society. So, I mean, we've just got to figure out how we, as strong, left-leaning people, can actually combat this without causing a huge mess in our nation.
Yeah,
and that's our real thing.
There is some good news to this. So with Project 2025, right? One of the things that's talked about is the idea of I believe it's called the unitary executive power. I think is what it's called. I could be wrong. I may need to Google it here.
I believe that's unitary.
Yeah, so it's this theory that basically the president can do whatever they want, right? And can just kind of say and do things, and on that. And so like the legal theory for that is sketchy and would like go to the Supreme Court for a lot of the kinds of policies and abilities that are being proposed. Again, I haven't read the whole document myself. This is just me reading. Like I actually found out about this. Believe it or not, I went to r/atheism the other day on Reddit, and that's the first time I saw. I can't remember the last time I went on Reddit, specifically the atheist subreddit, in a long time. I don't know. It's just you'd think I'd be on there more, but I'm not. Anyway, saw it on there. People talking about it. The unitary executive theory, right? This idea that the president has more of these powers and that the Constitution actually emboldens the president to be able to do these things. And this is somehow like what the founding fathers intended. This is the first time the strategy has been implemented. Actually, famously, if you watch that movie about Dick Cheney a couple of years ago, I can't remember the name of it, but like they talk about how supposedly Dick Cheney was trying to do, similar stuff back in the early aughts, but as VP. But despite this, right, despite all that, when it passes, we'll get there. But for now, we have a chance to not make it happen. And I guess it's just to raise awareness. I mean, like if you're wondering what you can do right now to like not be able to have something like this pass, in my opinion, if you want to know, I say check in with your friends, check in with your family, check in the ones who are the most affected by this, because chances are they probably already heard about this. See how they're feeling. See what you can do to help out your friends and family in the community. And then after that, see what you can contribute on a global scale. Because we can't give in to fear. We can't give in to this, oh, we can't do anything about this. And there's powers that be that are just larger than us, because that means they win, right? That means that people don't vote. And that means that people just accept things the way that they are and the way that they're going to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. We still live in a democracy, despite what some people say. And there are some changes that we can make. I'm not saying that we can change everything through the current systems, because we can't. But there's some stuff we can change. So that's my take on that, I think. JL, any thoughts?
Yeah, we absolutely need to be having, at minimum, we need to be having the conversations, and we need to obviously increase awareness. So it's a matter of being willing to have these conversations, no matter, and recognizing that, yes, they can get heated, especially when you're talking with, friends or family members that may have alternate opinions to yours or alternate views on where America should be heading. But we have to be able to we have to be willing to have these conversations. We have to be willing to take the time or find the time to go out and be at least aware of what's going on in our community, not only at a local level, but also at a federal level. If there's something coming up and you're able to get there, because it's our actions, it's us being a part of that process is what's going to get the results that we want, that ultimately we feel is where this nation should head. So that activism, that activity, you've got to be a part of it. You can't just couch surf it and watch it go by, because then nothing's going to happen, or it's going to they're going to take it and they're going to run with it, because that's what the other group is doing, the other side is doing. So being a part of it, all voices working together, have the conversation, talk to people, talk with other people, talk with opposing ideas, find that middle ground, bridge that divide. But when it comes to do it, we got to use our voices. That's what it comes down to.
I agree. Tim, I'll give you the last word here, and then I'm going to have to let you go. What do you think?
I think everything that we've said is good, and I mean, also try to find that one thing in which you agree, because it's really funny. Even the most far right people will agree to a lot of the things that are more left-leaning than they are right, when it comes down to just picking out a particular aspect, just one or two issues, and they will say, oh, you know what, that's right, I do think that's good. So pick out one or two issues that you both agree on and fight for those and get them to vote for those and get them to support those particular issues that are most important to just about everyone.
Yes, I agree with that, Tim. I like that answer. And Tim, thanks so much for calling back again. Tim, repeat caller of the show. Love him. Great guy. As far as I know, he could be a serial killer in real life, and I don't know that. But on the show, he's great. So I'll give you that. Of course, I don't think you are, Tim, but I'll never be 100% sure, will I? So
Thank you, Tim.
Tim, thanks so much for calling in. We have a couple of announcements I need to get through real quick. But before we do that, I actually have a video to show you. Video announcements are the best kinds of announcements, by the way. So we're going to play that video for you real quick. It's going to show you how you can support the ACA.
Have you ever wanted to make a permanent impact on the atheist community of Austin? Help support our space for free thought by buying a custom engraved brick to be laid on the building grounds to help raise funds for improvements. Our building has stood as a beacon for years, bringing people together. But 3 years of emptiness due to the pandemic have taken a toll, leaving it in disrepair. Help us restore this hub of connection and support by buying a brick. Moses had his stone tablets, but we're doing our own version. Join our brick fundraiser and let your engraved messages stand the test of time, minus commandments. Visit tiny.cc/ACA bricks for more information.
All right. And with that through, you should definitely check that out. But you could also you can also help out in other ways by showing your support through super chats. If you do a super chat here on the live stream, then I might read them live on the air for you, as long as they are YouTube appropriate. So Johnny got one in early. So if you have any other super chats you want to get in here, now is a good time to do them. If you want to support the show by donating on Patreon, as I mentioned before, you can do that. tiny.cc/PatreonTW. Couple different tiers on there. And one more thing to show support, you can become a member of the show. If you do that, you get emojis in the chat, your name gets highlighted, and you will be immune to the slow mode. And you can do that for as little as 99 cents a month, which is not a whole lot. Even in this economy, not a whole lot of money. So thank you to everybody who supports us in all of the different ways. Jaya, let's get back to the calls. I am really glad that we're getting this next call here. This is Phil. Phil's calling in from Texas. Phil, you want to know about the revelation that occurred in Mexican Congress this week. And I'm talking about the supposed alien bodies. Right, Phil? Right?
That's my main point tonight, yes.
That's what's up. See, okay, this is why I love doing this show, because I will see something in the news. Okay, whether it's the UAP stuff in Congress or David Grush doing something crazy, whatever. And I just know, like, someone's going to call me about this on Truth Wanted. So I have to do my homework on it. And I did. I was like, listen, if somebody doesn't call me about this, I'm going to be disappointed. But yes, for those of you who are out of the loop, in Congress, just like how we had our UAP testimony, somebody brought some bodies, straight up bodies, to Mexican Congress and was like, this is legit. This is literally like 1,000-year-old aliens, I think is what they said. And didn't show any testing on these bodies, I don't think. I don't even know if they said where they got them necessarily. But yeah, just said like, yeah, just trust me though, bro. These are legit. And that was it. That was like the whole presentation. Am I doing a fair summary of that, Phil?
You just stole all my points. I talk to you about. But first, I have to say good evening to both of you. I just discovered Mr. Warren's channel a week or two ago, and I loved you on Big Bang Theory. It's a shame you had to give up geology, but we're glad to have you as an atheist.
Damn.
Wonderful work. You're doing wonderful work. And I wanted to very briefly speak to his point. Yes, the Republicans 20-ish years ago discovered we don't have to win national elections. If we can win school boards and county commissioners and local elections, the rest will take care of itself. They started from the ground up, and boy, did it work. Boy, did it work.
Yeah.
Boy,
So
did
you
it
made
work.
so you made several of the points I was going to make. There's no provenance for when and where these bodies were found. There was no chain of custody. They just popped in out of thin air. They were supposedly discovered 6 years ago. Where have they been? Have they been in some storage shed for 6 years? And he said they have more than 30% DNA not in common with human beings. Who tested that? And that means nothing, because that's about the same commonality of DNA we have with certain worms. That doesn't prove extraterrestrial origin. Also, I think his name is Muffin, is a noted faker. In 1917, he presented a mummified body with an elongated skull as an ET. It turned out to be a child's body. So this guy's been a fraudster.
Was it 1917? Because that would make him over 100 years old. But yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Oh, did I say 19? I'm sorry. I meant.
That's what I heard. But
yes.
This guy is a known sort of alien enthusiast, I guess, and has faked stuff before. Which brings the question: how the hell did he get to Mexican Congress? Is it that easy to do a presentation? If this guy can do it, I think I can.
As I understand it, he's kind of a media. He's like the Geraldo Rivera of Mexico. He's kind of a media guy, who is very popular in the UFO and weirdo circles. But have you seen the pictures of the so-called aliens?
Yes. Oh, it's awesome. It looks like, there are movie props that look better than this. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not even the best effort. And that's the thing, Phil. I'm saying I can just go downtown on 6th Street in Austin and just find a drunk tourist and just be like, hey, actually, this is the guy that killed JFK. And I'm going to go in front of Mexican Congress and just be like, yeah, this is him, though. And it's going to be awesome. Like, I feel like the standards are that low at this point.
I made paper mache animals in elementary school that look better than that alien. I'm sorry.
Yes, paper mache has been mentioned. If you saw Alien Autopsy, that alien was more convincing than these aliens. It's just such an obvious cash in.
The aliens on X-Files are more convincing.
People are so eager and willing to believe. They just so desperately want to believe that we've been visited for hundreds of thousands of years, and they built the pyramids and this and that. The reason I bring this up tonight is I had a couple of friends email me this week, skeptics, who said, "Well, what do you think?" And I had to say, I'm not convinced. I feel like this is utter bullshit. It looks like such an obvious scam.
It's like it's not even trying. My favorite thing about this is that NASA, I think, also made a statement. It was just like, yeah, we remain skeptical or whatever, because obviously they can't be like, oh, this is fake and we know it, because like they haven't they weren't there themselves, I guess. But it's like, yeah, we can't take a position that endorses this, I guess, is the most neutral way of saying, yeah, this is fucking bullshit. But yeah, it's they're, at least with the Grush stuff and all the UAP stuff, at least there's some video footage, at least there's some eyewitness testimony, at least there's something there. This is, like you said, it's like a paper mache doll. Like it's not even that good. It's very disappointing, honestly.
I can't
put some effort into it.
I can't find any documentation or provenance on when and where those bodies were found exactly, where they've been for the last 6 years, why they didn't come out sooner with this, who did the DNA testing. I can't find any of the hard science on this. So what was he just waiting for the right public climate to reveal these things?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Mexico. Apparently you can get away with a lot more things there.
Well, it's already out. I love the fact that the internet's already taken it and run with it, because someone's already come out with a video, and I don't know the details behind it, but I saw the video on, via X, the new platform, and it was somebody had already recreated it out of cake, and it looks exactly the same as the one that was displayed in the Mexican Congress. And then they reach forward with the knife really slow, and then they cut a slice out of it. I was like, that is brilliant. Because it looks exactly the same. Whoever made this thing in Mexico forgot to smooth out the icing. But yeah, it's funny. It's both funny and kind of a little kind of like, this, that people need that. But hey,
Yeah, there is no claim that someone can't make if they say it enthusiastically and in a loud voice. that a certain amount of people won't swallow hook, line, and sinker. We're that gullible as a species.
I think so.
That's all I had. I'll let you get on to other callers. Largely, I called in possibly just to crowd Emmanuel out in case he called tonight. that was
Phil,
my primary
we
motive.
appreciate.
But
Yeah,
JL, I love your stuff. I just discovered you a few weeks ago, and you're fantastic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Phil, for calling in. And thank you for that awesome topic, folks. I know there are some callers that are more popular than other callers. Okay, and here's the thing: I gotta take what I can get. Sometimes lines are empty, and this is a call-in show. Okay, so it's like, I'll take it. So as it's been said before, if you don't like some of the callers that call in, just call in yourself. And you know what? Phil did that today, so props to him for that. But we do have some other folks that we're going to talk to in a bit here. Before we do, I need to mention that there is a limited edition T-shirt that is available for you right now, and I really like this one. It says, "If the Earth is really flat, how does it wear its pants?" It's at tiny.cc/merchaca, along with the rest of the Truth Wanted swag. If you want to pick it up there, you totally can. And if you want to hear our content in audio only form, you can definitely do that as well. Tiny.cc/AEN podcast for all the latest shows. And last but not least, before I get to my next announcement, there is a Facebook group, and I'll go ahead and get this one out of the way as well. If you like Truth Wanted, you want to talk about it with some other folks, check out the Facebook group, tiny.cc/FBTWG. It's run by fans, for fans. So look at that and be on your merry way, I suppose. But right now, you're listening to Truth Wanted. So let's keep rolling with the calls. We have, there was one thing I wanted to say, though, which is I'm not as up to date on the UFO community as I used to be. I used to know some of the bigger names, and some of that knowledge has lost me. But if you ever look at UFO community footage, if you look at the conferences and presentations, you might be surprised. A lot of them come out of Latin America. The most sincerest believers of this stuff, and I say sincerest, I mean like the people, like I'm talking about like the audience who's just like in awe. I don't think the people on stage. I think there's a lot of grifters that come out of there. But like the most like bold-faced lies come out of these conferences, specifically from Latin America. There's like a couple of these clips I'm thinking of, but like the way that I remember this one where it's just like, here's an example of some stuff, and here's some crop circles, and then he just moves on. Here's a picture that a lady saw one time, and it's just like a drawing of like an alien, and it's just like, wow, you just went from one thing to another in like 30 seconds, and like didn't even like say where those pictures are from or whatever. And it's just like this rapid fire of like bullshit. And I don't know what it is, but yeah, there's definitely those people out there trying to make their money. You ever seen any of that kind of stuff, JL?
Both in the UFO community and I will say in the Flat Earth community as well, because I dared myself one time. I went to the Flat Earth International Conference in 2019 when it was, back in Texas, and, spent some time walking around talking to people. So, and absolutely, while there is a vast majority of the individuals who, I would say they're looking for a community they can be a part of, that these individuals typically are disenfranchised. They're kind of angry about their, things in their lives. They're looking for something to hold on to, some sort of group that kind of like validates them and gives them, that purpose that they need. The vast majority of them, I would say, are individuals taking advantage of that and just putting anything out there they possibly can, limiting any kind of like critical inquiry into it. And they just be like, here it is. And then they just, then they run away with your money. And so I see that sadly more often than I would like to see. I
gotta say though, my new goal in life is to pass something up to Mexico's Congress and be able to make a presentation. It doesn't have to be real. I just want to do that now, because now I know it's possible.
What medium will you work in though? Because paper mache's been done. You need something new.
What would I do? What would I say? Oh, gosh, there's so many things. Maybe I'll say I invented what do you call it, where they can like freeze things, like quantum freezing, or what's that thing that I'm talking about? I don't know. The engineers in the chat know what I'm talking about. The stuff, like some sort of, I know. I'll say I created a perpetual motion machine, and it'll be like something swinging back and forth, and it's gonna be like battery powered. But apparently nobody's gonna check. So I don't know. All I'm saying is I have a new goal in life, and I'm gonna pursue that. So
you could present fossilized Quetzalcoatl scales,
Ooh.
like the skin, like a
Ooh.
fossilized skin. It's like, this is the skin of Quetzalcoatl. We found it in this ancient dig out here in the middle of
I like
nowhere.
that.
Yeah, and you can't go there because it's all cordoned off. You know, it's
No.
all protected. So, but we
I
brought this
know.
as evidence. Put it in a glass case. Mexican Congress. Profit.
JL, I got it. Giants. You gotta go the
Giants.
giant route. You gotta go the Nephilim, baby. I love me some Nephilim. Bring me the Nephilim. That's the next thing. Gotta be the Nephilim. Folks, if you're running a Nephilim grift, get me in on it. I'd love to be a part of it. Let's move on. We've got Daniel, who wants to talk to us about other stuff here, actually tangentially related. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure, actually. Daniel from Canada, who's calling, wants to talk to us about a recent NASA report on the UFO phenomenon. Daniel, what do you got? Hello, Daniel. You are live on Truth Wanted. If you can hear us, say something now. All right, Daniel, we can't hear you, but that doesn't. Yep, there we go. Was just about to put you back in the queue, but now I can hear you. Daniel, you just made it. You made it. Congratulations. What do you got for us, Daniel?
No, I was just calling in just because that report came out last week, I think, about the NASA. And I thought it was interesting that they said there's no evidence that it's alien, but at the same time, they can't say what it is. So maybe it is alien.
Yes. So I know what you're talking about. NASA released a report about UAPs. Now, this is another example of I didn't actually have time to read the report. I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw the headline and saw the general thing on my news app, right? So you probably have to tell me about what it says in there because I actually don't know.
No, actually, I just saw a news report and I saw the representative. He used to be a former politician, I think. The NASA guy who was talking, and no.
Oh, Daniel, are you there? Uh-oh. We might have just lost you, Daniel. Well, if you were calling in on like a Bluetooth phone or doing something there, make sure you have a wired connection or at least as good of a connection as you can get. I am going to put you back in the queue. That doesn't mean that we won't take your call. We'll let you talk to the call screener and the folks behind the scenes, make sure we can sort yourself out. But while we're waiting on Daniel, we'll talk to somebody else who's in the queue. We have Julian, who's calling in from Texas. Julian, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Holy cow. I didn't actually think I'd be picked up. I thought I'd get dropped because I called too late. I'm very excited.
You did it. Congratulations. What's going on, Julian?
I wanted to talk about knowledge, science, secularism, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because I realized that I don't really know as much as I think I know earlier. This all started when I was just completing up a job. I bury cable for a living, and I had accidentally ate a little bit of dirt, unsurprisingly, because I had to crawl on all fours to bury it. And I was like, tapeworms are located in the dirt. How do they get in the dirt? And I used Google, and that got answered. And I was like, man, I don't know if that's correct or not. Where am I supposed to go find out about this? I can't afford college. I don't know any scientists. And I figured this place would be the best channel to call because, I mean, as the show says, it's Truth Wanted.
So wait, Julian, are you calling me to ask me where tapeworms come from? Is that actually where we're going here?
I was just saying that's what brought up my thought. And I was like, oh, yeah, Truth Wanted is calling today, and I wanted to know more information just in general. Where's the best sources of information, current scientific information to learn from that isn't just Google or Wikipedia? Because I like to learn, and I don't know enough.
Okay. Yeah. So I was going to surprise you because I actually found out my adopted cat. I haven't talked about my new adopted cat very much on this show, you guys. His name is Lord Frieza. And I've had him for a few months now. We just saw a tapeworm out of his booty hole the other day. And we just had him tested. We just had him tested a few weeks ago, and he did not have a tapeworm, according to this test. Turns out there's a lot of false negatives for tapeworm. So we just got him some medication. And I think he's feeling better and stuff. So I learned a lot about tapeworms recently. So I could actually tell you about the tapeworm thing, but that's not what you want to ask about, which is good. Let's take it to JL first. JL, when you go to reference information or when you're looking at sources for stuff, what are you looking at?
So I know it's not probably not what he's expecting, because he used like other things other than Google and Wikipedia. So I spend a lot of time on Google Scholar. So because you can get the references. Like if you go to like, sources like Wikipedia, you can go to the like where they're referencing and find those actual like scholarly articles that they're referencing in those articles. So I tend to spend a lot of time there, but it's also in books. So like if you're addressing a particular topic, like for example, just throwing it out there, when addressing, say, presuppositional apologetics, then you find who the people are that were involved in that, like say it was Van Til or Greg Ponson, a number of other names, and then you go and you look for their books, and then you like read their books, or you can read some summations of their books and then find their arguments and then work from there. And it's it takes time. I find that going to the source is always the absolute best. So instead of just coming up with an article or something like that, look into the individuals themselves, look into the body of their work, so you can get the best kind of information, so you get a scope on what their ideas are, what their focuses are, and what they're trying to do, and then you can get a better sense of what is the information that's being put out there. So I would say scholarly articles and going to the source, the books themselves written by whoever you're investigating, whether it be a scientist or a philosopher or a theologian or whoever.
Yeah. And it is going to depend on subject matter, but I'll tell you this, Julian, for every deep dive that I've done on this show, the reason why I don't do them all the time is because I actually do a lot of work in doing it. It's not just like, oh, what does it say on the Wikipedia page? Like for my one that I did about the CIA's involvement with drugging people with LSD and stuff, right? Like I went to Internet Archive, which is a free website you can go to, and I actually looked at original the released documents from like the testimonies that were given in Congress and stuff, right? Like the primary sources, right? What are called primary sources, the original sources for some of this stuff, just so I can get some firsthand knowledge of it. And I can tell you, even after doing all that, there's still a lot I don't know about what exactly happened. The truth is, real knowledge, right, is really hard to do. That's why like we trust doctors to go to school for like 8 years to get the knowledge that they need to do what they do, and they learn about all kinds of stuff that they don't necessarily use every day, like hard chemistry, right? Like stuff that is good to know, but like it requires a lot of time to study and figure out and fully understand. So it's like I would say if you don't feel like you know stuff, you don't, and that's okay. Like Socrates says, he was wise because he knew that he didn't know the things that other people said that they knew. Yeah. That's not how that quote goes, but I don't know the original quote.
No, but
I don't know the original quote, which means I'm wise because I don't know it.
I wanted to see how far you were going to take that. I really did.
So there you go.
But I will say this: I feel validated because I'm not the only one who actually took the time to sift through the MK Ultra reports, like what was actually released. Because I did that too for a video once, and it was just like, but I'm not alone. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that.
Oh no, I'm brain broken, and will do stupid levels of research for that kind of stuff. Anyway, Julian, you were going to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say I know one of the most important things, like the first step into learning anything, is to admit, hey, I don't know everything. There's potential for me to be wrong. Maybe I am wrong. How do I find that out? Be skeptical of the things that you have already established as like baselines for reality, for lack of better terminology. Sure. And it's just like, is relevant information always not relevant? That's the wrong word. Real information always something that you can find scholarly sources for, or are there times when somebody proposes something that's counter to what somebody else says about reality? Like I'm imagining before hand washing, for example, some people would claim, hey, if you wash your hands before doing surgery, you can potentially save a patient's life, and they didn't know why. And then that led to the study of that led to the study of microbiology. Hey, maybe if we do this, we can keep all the microbes off our hands, that sort of thing. I don't want to just sit here and use my own biases and preconceived ideas on what I think is correct.
Sure.
But
well, I think you're starting from an excellent place.
11-hour shift. It's hard for me to gather my thoughts.
No, it's
Oh,
okay.
gotcha.
I think you're starting from an excellent place. That you're starting from the position that you recognize the things that you don't know, and then you want to find them out. So that's great. Initially, your starting point is fantastic, and then it's just about when you start exploring different fields, like different. If you want to go into one, there's multiple different voices in that field. Is that don't go in, and this was a tough thing for me when I kind of started going down this road. Was don't go in trying to find the thing that matches what you feel. Like everybody's got their kind of intuitions about
I love learning.
Yeah. Everybody's got their intuitions about
like I feel like I can't learn enough.
Right. And just so if you come at it with intellectual honesty, that's the most important thing. Because I find that a lot of people in their zeal to try and find their best kind of explanation as to like reality or phenomena or whatever tend to sometimes, and it's no fault of their own, but they tend to kind of slide with what confirms what they already kind of feel is right. And that's an important thing to recognize. So as long as you can keep that in mind, then you can approach it as objectively as possible and then kind of find, what you feel fits and what has the most evidence going for it so that you don't wind up going, that particular field of philosophy, that's got to be the right one because that kind of validates what I think. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. But I think you're on the right path and you've started in the right place and you're heading in the right direction.
So I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound very disappointing. Go ahead, Julian.
No, it was just like you started talking. There is a delay, and I know there's a delay, and I was like, "Is he done talking?" And it's my turn, or is it the next guy's turn? I interrupted you. You go.
Well, so here's what I was going to say, right? So I'm going to tell you something in my personal opinion that's going to make you probably very disappointed. Because you asked a very good question. Okay, well, some study says something about this, and what do I do with that information? How do I evaluate that? The truth is, the honest to God truth is, you can't, and you probably won't be able to. And here's the reason why. Whatever studies you're looking at, if it's in a reputable publication, if it's in a journal, that journal audience is not meant for you. It's meant for people who at least have undergraduate degrees, if not master's degrees, if not PhDs in the topic that journal publishes in. Right. And so the methodologies, the terminologies, the histories, the everything that's used in even just comprehending what a good source is going to tell you is not going to be very accessible to you because it's not written for you. Right.
So
it's written for experts.
So I have to know about the thing before I can even determine if it's truthful.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm just having to sit here and just take it on conjecture, maybe.
I have a communication studies degree. I look at communication journals and I see shit I don't understand all the time. Like, I just have an undergrad. You know what I mean? I don't have a PhD or anything. But it's like I am at least familiar with the terminology and some of the background field knowledge, and it's still so specific that it's going to be hard for me to interpret. So you're wondering, okay, well, is the world unnavigable? Does that mean that I can't know things? And in some ways, yeah, you kind of can't. You kind of can't be the one to determine the pH balance of orange juice, right? Unless you know how to do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, unless you have the training, you really aren't going to be the arbiter of that kind of knowledge. At some level, as human beings, we have to kind of entrust our knowledge into experts, into that siloing. When I talk about news stories on here, first of all, if you're looking at news, I recommend you pay for your news, whatever you get. That's the one advice I have, because if you're paying for your news, it's likely a higher quality news source. But if you don't have that option as an accessibility, that's fine. If you're just hearing from guys like me about your news, you have to trust that, one, I'm being honest with you, and that I can read the news, and that I'm also quoting directly, because sources like the AP, I'm going to trust because they have legal liability for the stuff that they publish. They can't just post things willy-nilly. They have things called libel suits that can happen, as well as a myriad of other things, stuff that's standard to AP journal practices about how they write and their writing styles. That's going to, make the quality of their writing more consistent. And if they do publish anything wrong, they typically have an obligation to write a retraction based on whatever is written there. So publications that have standards,
that's
like
always
that,
that's always. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You cut out for a second, and I thought you had finished. I'm sorry.
Just like popular science mags. popular science itself, actually, Nature, right? These other real popular magazines / journals, like they make themselves much more accessible to the public so that you can understand it. But whether or not you're going to be the arbiter of that, if you're doing original research on a subject that hasn't been done before, chances are you're not going to be able to fully know, because the people who are experts in a lot of these fields, they don't fully know a lot of times. They're trying to figure this stuff out too. It's really hard. Knowing stuff is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my spiel there.
Ain't
Julian.
that the flipping truth, man?
Yeah. So
no, I find it respectable for somebody to be able to go, you know what, I could possibly be wrong. But follow-up, I have 2 follow-up questions, and then I'll get out of you guys' hair because I know it's getting close to that time. Number 1, is it wrong for somebody to go, I'm right until proven wrong, especially when it comes to matters like, I'm going to say, evolution? I know it's a very hotly disputed topic by some people that don't know about it, and even some people that know a lot about it. But there's people that say this is objectively true unless you can prove otherwise. I have mountains of evidence supporting me. Since I don't have any evidence suggesting that it's wrong, I'm not going to say that it's wrong. So I'm going to go with the positive. Is it wrong to do that?
I'll answer on this quickly first, and then I'll let JL Warren answer on this. So again, a preface here: I'm not a philosopher. I will read books on philosophy sometimes, and there is this concept called the null hypothesis. Okay, and the null hypothesis says basically this: is that when you're examining phenomenon, specifically in statistics is when the null hypothesis is used. But when you're examining phenomenon sort of in general, right, you want to be more skeptical than you want to be accepting of something to be true. So in other words, you can accept that the null hypothesis...
Like the scientific method, right?
Yeah, kind of like the scientific method, but the null hypothesis is basically saying, okay, you're going to accept that there actually isn't a relationship here until proven otherwise, right? In other words, you could keep going with your same body of knowledge before you are able to evaluate anything new, because otherwise, how can you evaluate something entirely new, right? If we're considering new forms of thought, how do we get there? What's that process like? We have to be able to use already established knowledge to get there, right? We still have to use the same methods that we've been using yesterday to get to that stuff. Now, we do, obviously different scientists and engineers, people smarter than me, will come up with new stuff, new ways to test things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they had to figure out other ways to figure out how those new ways were more reliable. You know what I mean? We have to use our established knowledge before we can get to new knowledge claims. And so the null hypothesis is what you should take with a lot of things. So if somebody says, I believe in Glibberglob, the god of evil and ice cream cones, and he lives on planet Jupiter, but he's also invisible. Could that be true? Yeah, sure. But I'm going to accept the null hypothesis and say, I'm not going to change anything about my beliefs until something is shown to the contrary that I should. And that's my understanding of it. But I'm also not a statistician, so I could get that wrong. And I feel like I have to keep saying that because that's the moral of the story. JL, what do you think?
I completely agree with you. You kind of took the words out of my mouth regarding the null hypothesis. And so I think you nailed it. In keeping things in mind, not to multiply your entities unnecessarily, don't make any more assumptions than you have to, and always recognize that when we are developing the models that explain the phenomena that we see in the world, the purpose of science is to improve those models. So a part of that process is by tearing down the old model so that we can build a better and more accurate model that makes more accurate predictions about reality and explains reality even better. So that's the whole point of the whole process that we go through. So we acknowledge that there could always be more information that's available to us. There could always be something on the horizon. And even if we found out everything that we could possibly know, we'd never say that we found out everything. We're never going to get to 100%, because that at least keeps us honest and keeps us, looking for more stuff. So as long as you have that curiosity, as long as you're willing to approach it from that perspective and keep learning and always acknowledge that you could learn more, there could be more evidence on the horizon, and go with the best model. And that's what I do typically, is I side with the model that typically makes the best and the most accurate predictions about reality. That's the one we want to work with, because that's how we understand things like, evolution to be true, to be representative of reality, that this is it. And this is how we're accurately describing the phenomena. So, keep those things in mind. Plus everything that Dan said regarding the null hypothesis, very, very important. So
Yes, sir. So when you say model, are you meaning? I'm having trouble grasping what you mean. Like I know the scientific method is a model of discerning truth. It's like you form a hypothesis, gather evidence, see what that evidence suggests. Based off of my evidence that I've seen, my hypothesis is either true or false, and I can make predictive expectation of what I should see in reality based off of this evidence, that evidence. If I was wrong, then it would be this. I'm having difficulty understanding what you mean by the word model. Can you define it for me, please?
When I use the word model, and maybe JL, you're going to say differently, I'm talking about statistical model. Okay. So after this call, I want you to look this up, Julian. I want you to look up Bayesian statistics. That's Bayesian. Okay. There is this guy, last name is Bayes, right? And he came up with this idea. He was like, what if we could assign statistical probabilities to whether things are true or not, whether we think things are true or not, and what if we could update that when we get new information? What if not only that, what if we can take these abstract concepts and actually put them into a number form so that we can actually assign a number value, a probability as to what we think something could be true or not? And this is a really interesting idea, and that's what he did. He came up with Bayesian statistics, and Bayesian statistics is exactly that. It's assigning a probability value to what you believe is something to be true, testing that belief against reality, right? Usually scientific method is one way in which you do that, and then updating your model after you come across it. And you can actually do this in number form. Like you can literally write this in a math equation. I don't have time to explain the entirety of it, and you probably won't get it in one conversation, and that's okay because it's going to take a little bit. But when I'm talking about models, I literally mean models. I mean, you can actually write this out in number form and update your beliefs based on what you see, and assign these kinds of numbers to it. It's a very interesting process. But JL, would you agree with that idea of model, or maybe you have a different understanding?
I would agree with what you presented. And I also would, from where I was speaking, I was talking about the models that we use as representations of reality in and of itself. So like when we use the information that we can gather utilizing things like mathematics in order to derive a better image of something that is difficult to like see in reality. So if, like, for example, when you're looking at a picture of the solar system, obviously you can't look up it in the sky with your naked eye and see these things, but we can develop an accurate representation of our solar system and our solar system in relation to the sun, in relation to other stars and other galaxies. And we can do this because of the information we have. So we take the collective information we have in a particular thing, in a particular field, and we use it to assemble a model that we can then make predictions about. It was the best example I have of this is obviously, and I know a lot of people out there are familiar with it, is how we predicted Neptune. So essentially, we had a model of the solar system leading out to Uranus, and then, but there, because of perturbations in that orbit, we hypothesized that there was another planetary body out there that we didn't know. So we used the model that we had that went up to Uranus, and then we made a prediction just about like what would cause this. And then we predicted that, well, if it's true, if the model holds true, then we will expect to see this planetary body of this particular size appear in this window of visibility at this date and time. We look at that time, there's we discovered a planet, and so on and so forth. And that's how we keep improving these models as we get better and better and more accurate information. So that's what essentially what I was kind of referring to was just the things that we create to represent reality that makes it easier to visualize when people are looking at them.
Yeah. That's another alternate and also acceptable version of the word model, depending on how you're using it in that context. But yeah, for sure. Julian, I think we got some heady spaces.
I'm still here.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
No, I'm feeling pretty good. I looked at Bayesian statistics, and I read like the quick first result definition of it, and I was listening to what you guys said, and I was like, So to summarize it, BS is literally I have this amount of pieces of evidence versus this for one argument versus this amount of number of it for another one. So I'm more correctly in this one over here, option A instead of option B. And I had to mute myself because I thought that was funny because I was like BS instead of just, full waste.
Yeah.
Statistics.
Yeah, sort of. You're assigning prior probability to things and testing it for later. But again, I can't go into it. It's first of all, it's not entertaining and it's boring, and I don't want to bore the audience. But it will take some work. But once you realize it, it's a really powerful tool. You can figure it out, and it's
I honestly thought he was like he read that first line. He was like, I looked it up and I read.
I was like, I looked it up and I understood it. No, he's like, I totally get it. It's what do you call it? It's like that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robin Williams, you know, where he's like the janitor. He's doing the numbers on the chalkboard. Yeah, Matt Damon. I said Leonardo DiCaprio, didn't I?
You did.
Wow, that's sad. Well, that's on the internet forever.
I have no idea what movie you guys are talking about.
That's fine. I got it wrong.
Wasn't very good. That wasn't very good.
Here's the difference, Julian. Nobody's going to comment that you don't know the movie. Everybody's going to comment that I got that wrong. So that's the difference in our level of.
So it's your fault that I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, you can blame it on me. That's totally fine. Anyway, we do have to let you go. We got to let you go so we can at least maybe get one more call before we wrap up. We'll see. Looking at the time here, but yeah. Thanks so much for calling. I love that call. That was a great call.
That was a good call.
Because
I like where he's starting. I think he's starting from a great position, recognizing that you don't have knowledge. And one thing I didn't get to say, but I think is very, very important, is that this is something that fundamentally in this nation, I think that we need to be able to address, is that it is okay to say, I don't know. I don't know is not a position of weakness. It is a position of strength, because it acknowledges that you're at a place where you can gain more knowledge and gain more information. And that's a good thing, because more knowledge, more information means more informed decision making. So admitting that when you don't know, that's a good thing. And it's something I think we really need to push across the board. I
think that's true too. And I think much smarter people than me should also tell you about like what knowledge is and stuff, because quite frankly, that's a whole shebang. That's a whole big topic right there. That podcast hosts just aren't mostly qualified to talk about.
You went Bayesian, which was great.
I did go Bayesian there.
I thought you were going to go like epistemology, like the fields of epistemology, like how we know things. I was like, oh, okay. But then you was like, oh, statistics.
Well, because he's asking about methods. And I like Bayesian stuff, but we never talk about it because it's boring. Because that's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the real deal. Guys watching this show, okay, if this was like a real philosophy show, you wouldn't even want to watch it, because it would get really boring really fast, unless you're like really into that. And that's fine if you are. I'm into that, okay. I'll read that stuff all day, but doesn't make for a great call-in show all the time. So the nitty-gritty sometimes isn't always that great. But I have a super chat I need to read real quick. I have $2 from Hell's Bells, lovely Hell's Bells, who says, Mulder, the internet is not good for you, Scully. Which is true. So gosh, we're getting towards the tail end of the call, but real quickly, I think I'm going to talk to Daniel again, just because he's been waiting, and we want to try to get to you. Daniel, I think you're going to be the last call for us tonight. And I'm sorry we're getting you at the tail end of the show, so we will make it kind of quick. But Daniel, you're back online with us. Daniel from Canada, what's up?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes. We got you.
No, about that alien NASA report, I just said that all they're really saying is there's no evidence that it's aliens, but at the same time, they don't know what it is. So that's all the report seems to be saying. And who cares?
I believe it. Yeah. I haven't read it, but that sounds like something NASA would put out. I don't know. It sounds like a waste of time to me. It sounds like something I would have told you.
It was pretty similar to what the Pentagon said about, to what the DOD said about the Department of Defense, because they essentially said the exact same thing, is that there are a few of these that, like, many of them they can debunk, but there were a couple of them that were intriguing because they was like, that's interesting technology. That's not ours. We don't know what that is, but we're not going to go out and say, it's aliens. We're not going to take the History Channel position on that.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. No.
True.
I think it might be aliens.
Really?
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you think it might be aliens, Daniel. I know you've called into this show before. I know. Yeah. I know you believe. In your heart.
I'm curious. So I have a question for you, Daniel. If it's okay, if I can ask.
Sure.
Okay. So looking at the mathematics, like the mathematics of the universe, right? So the position that I've always held on that is that the mathematics of the universe virtually guarantee that we are not alone, but they also virtually guarantee that we'll never meet anyone else. Just the vast distances, you know, the limitations of biology, the extraordinary technology that required to cross these vast distances. If for a species to come to for an intelligent species to come from another planet to us would essentially necessitate overcoming biology so that age is not a factor, or overcoming the limitations of physics. You know, a new area of physics that we don't yet understand or don't have access to. So to kind of like broach into science fiction, like what Star Trek and other things do. So I'm kind of curious, how do you reconcile that?
Well, I think that you may be wrong in your assumption that the aliens have to be from another part of the solar system. Maybe they're in our own solar system already. I have a theory that they are. My conjecture is that they are already in our solar system. There's NASA and JPL photographs of planets and moons throughout the solar system. The surfaces are always very blurry, and there are a number of anomaly channels where they use Photoshop to take away the blur and see what seems to be what the blur seems to be covering up. And it seems to be that there are structures on moons and planets throughout our solar system, and I contend that they are advanced civilizations that use the planets, the inside of the planets. They're not indigenous to the planets. They came here a long time ago. I think solar systems die, stars explode, or whatever, they go supernova. So I think if a civilization, a technological civilization advances further enough, I think you have to leave your solar system because the star's going to collapse or whatever, because their star's going to go supernova. And I think if you get far enough in advance in your technology, you can move around the solar system by living in planets and moons and creating your own environment on the inside of these planets and moons.
Yeah.
And I think they came to our solar system. And I think that explains the UFO phenomenon for the last 75 years.
There you go, JL. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
the reason why I'm not surprised, JL, is because Daniel's called in before. This is not the first time. Daniel knows my take. Obviously, he knows I disagree.
Yeah, I was going to let you take the lead because I mean,
we've had this conversation. We've had this. You can have this conversation if you want, but I've said my piece on the matter. Go ahead, feel free.
So I hold to it. While I understand and I'm familiar with some of the stuff that you may be referencing, like the recordings of supposedly came out of Neil Armstrong when they were on the moon, and there are certain intriguing things that I obviously pick, like there are images of like other moons, especially around Jupiter, that I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to, like the blurry images and those where it looks like squares of them were taken out. So I understand that, and I get where you're coming from on that. I think it's a bit of a leap to go from a photograph that we've seen that we don't know, the context of why it may look like that, or it may be for whatever reason, photography came out with a bad image. Obviously, I think stellar photography in the past, has come a long way in the last 5 years. But, when you're going like 20, 25, 30 years back, stellar photography was not fantastic. The James Webb is the big advancement that we've had recently. So I still have to side with the mathematics of it, that interstellar travel it would be a major thing, because we're talking about faster than light.
We don't think of like Arthur C. Clarke, the statement by Arthur C. Clarke. Any significantly advanced technology is going to seem like magic to us. Imagine the technology of a civilization that's centuries ahead of us, 1,000 years ahead of us, 1,000,000 years ahead of us. We have no idea what that could do, how they could travel around the solar system. I just think that's an unknown, right? And I think even what's the theoretical physicist, Maku, I forget the guy's name, a Japanese American, I think.
Michio Kaku?
Yeah, Michio Kaku.
Yeah, Michio Kaku.
Yeah.
He posed that question on a show, like on one of these Discovery shows. I agree with you about those shows. They're all, they're all the ancient astronauts.
Michio Kaku is on his. First of all, Michio Kaku is on his string theory grift. Okay, I'm not calling him a grifter. I'm just joking. But he's on that string. That's a whole other thing. All right.
Yeah,
okay. Don't get me started on string theory. I don't know enough about it to comment on it. But
predominantly, Daniel, I fall down. I fall in the deals like if you a significantly advanced civilization, like especially an intelligent species, coming to our planet, given that level of intelligence and that level of technological mastery, there seems to be, to me, this may just be my opinion, but I'm just looking at when doing surveys, when doing if you're reconnaissancing another planet, or if you're like an intelligent species coming to another planet just to check it out, ooh, look at these primitive life forms, let's record them for study. There would be no service done in us glimpsing them, and them letting us see us, especially in such a primitive, considering the technological difference, because all that would do would serve us to incite panic and fear and just discord, because now all of a sudden people are seeing things, and then you cause this is the whole premise behind Star Trek, in the idea that there is no non-involvement, because you don't want to affect a civilization in that respect. So I have
a counter for you, JL. Okay. I'm gonna interrupt you. Okay, because I've heard this argument from other skeptics, and I like to play advocate here. Okay, I like to play devil's advocate on this, because I am fundamentally stupid. I'm a dumb guy. I'm a himbo at best. But I can drive a car. I don't know how to build a car. I could tell you that's an engine and there's some fluid and that goes in there. I can't tell you anything about it. And I can crash that thing tomorrow, but I'm legally allowed to drive it, right? I'm assuming if there's aliens out there and they got the tech to come visit us, I'm not saying there's drunk teenage aliens that are doing their thing around here, but I'm saying they could make mistakes too, right? There's variance within the species. There is another human being that helped invent the space shuttles to get to the moon. And there's other human beings that invented new mixes for tequila that just get everybody wasted and don't contribute to humanity at all in a cultural respect, rather. So it's I think there's enough variance in the possibility of aliens that some of them could just be fucking with us or could have just fucked up. I think that's possible. What do you think?
I think that when you automatically define these things as having such a vast separation of our technology, not to mention our technology, but it also be our physiology. So we're talking about such an incredible swath in between them and us that I think it is an error to assume or to even begin to look at them as that they would operate in any way similar to us as far as reasoning goes, especially when you can view the universe in a way different, fundamentally different than we can. If you're viewing the universe from a fourth dimensional perspective, if you want to go into dimensionals, they can literally move through time in that respect. So if you want to look at it from that perspective on the universe of viewing the universe like that fundamentally alters how you interpret everything. And so
that's true.
Coming to the conclusion that they could conclude things the same way as us, I think is a giant error. It's assumed that they would do the things similar to what we would do. Now, I'm just saying from one intelligent species to another semi-intelligent species to a more primitive species like us, there's only I can only fathom two reasons why there would be an interaction. One, show up and interact with us, or show up and study us, but don't reveal yourselves to us, because revealing themselves could be detrimental and could alter things in a way that could be.
Oh, I'm not saying. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm just saying my cat has no idea that I'm live streaming to several hundred people right now, and there's a thing called the internet, right? And it's I'm still here, right? Just because my cat can't comprehend it, and that doesn't mean that aliens can't do some weird stuff. But I agree with you, though. I think it has to be interdimensional. It has to be beyond our dimensions to come in here, or intersolar, which is this is Daniel's take, which is interesting, because it's either we're in a simulation and they can access us on the inside, or it's an interdimensional thing. They're on a higher plane of existence, or they're in the solar system. And that's what makes Daniel so interesting, because if they're in the solar system,
Daniel, do you have a hypothesis as to where they may have? Do you have a hypothesis, Daniel, as to where they may have originated in the solar system?
Mars.
No. I just like what you just said was, I believe, what is happening, that they're studying us and they're not revealing themselves to us. And I think the government knows it, and they can't reveal it to us either, because I think, would you not agree, JL, that an advanced technological civilization coming in contact with us is going to cause a lot of problems for our civilization. I think it's a big. I don't know what will happen.
I disagree. I disagree. I'm not that cynical on the topic. An advanced civilization I don't take the Hawking route. I don't side with Stephen Hawking. With Stephen Hawking on that. In that, that it would lead to destruction, because he was taking what happens here on Earth and assuming that an advanced civilization would operate the exact same way. So, like, when the conquistadors came over and subjugated the indigenous Americans of South America and Mexico, I don't believe that would happen. I'm not inclined to believe that, because I don't think they would operate the exact same way as us. But
wait, hold on. I gotta play devil's advocate again here. I gotta steal man Daniel's point. I think, and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not necessarily saying the aliens would do something. Rather, it's a human response, right? Like, it's a public safety measure, right? Because like we could still have mass panics or mass hysteria about events, and people could do irrational things, right? Is that what you're saying, Daniel?
Yeah, or like I said before, maybe they have technology that could give everyone like a little device that could power your home and power your car and do all these wondrous things for us. But at the same time, maybe if you had some little scientific skill, you could turn it into an atomic bomb or something. They couldn't trust us with this technology. That's my point. Because last time when I called you last time, you titled the program, "The Aliens Are Too Complex for Us." I don't think they're too complex for us. I think it's our penchant for war and our penchant for cruelty. And that's what I think is why they're just studying us.
I wouldn't trust my cat with the internet.
Have full contact.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that given the level of advancement like that, I do not think that would be, because they could. I mean, obviously, if they came to us and were giving us technology, they were violating the Prime Directive in that respect. Then they could control. They could control how we could utilize that technology. You can. I mean, when you have that level of mastery of whether it be physics or whatever, essentially you're like technology that verges on like magic. Okay. Yes, they could give everybody replicators, and we, just to use the Star Trek reference, they could give everybody replicators. Now everybody has free food because it literally pulls the energy out and just formulates it there. Fan-freaking-tastic. Everybody's got that. Now, yeah, we might tinker, we might mess with it. I have no idea, but they could also control how they give us that tech, and how we could have access to it. So we're talking about that level of advancement, that extreme level of advancement. And I'm not cynical enough to think that they would come here and hurt us or harm us or destroy us, or there would be a natural kind of like overtaking. I think it would be an exchange of knowledge. And I don't think that humanity, I agree that there would be pockets of people that would freak out, because obviously aliens coming in, extraterrestrial organisms coming in, would challenge the whole notion for some people that humans are, like central in the universe, that we are the most important thing. Obviously, that changes the paradigm quite a bit. But I think as a whole, human beings actually would be awestruck to that degree, because a giant question has just been answered. And in the wake of that answering, obviously there will be more questions, but that is a massive question. Are we alone? That knowledge right there is enough to unify is enough in my mind to unify the entire planet under a common banner. We are now humans amidst a universal society. There's at least one more out there. And that is a massive thing, because that's a huge step that we need to take. That answers a lot of questions. So
by the same token, though, I mean, like, it's like, I'm giving you a hard time tonight, JL. I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm giving you a hard time with this. But it's like, look, you say that we can't assume the predilections of aliens, right? We don't know what they're going to be like, because we can't make it based on humans, right? And I agree with you. So they may not be warlike.
Like Independence Day. I don't think
Independence Day.
It's silly.
That may be true, but also like we could just as well say that the other way, right? We could just say, oh, but that also means they could just be totally warlike. And we don't know. They could be, right? Like, there's no reason to think why they wouldn't be. Like, they would just be
more along the lines of Arrival with Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner. That was like, we're talking about like a species so fundamentally different from us that their means of communication, their biology in and of itself, their methods of technology are just like incomprehensible in order to bypass either the biological limitations or the technological limitations of traversing
That's
space.
true.
Now, I agree. Now, that's why I like this idea of intrasolar system. Intrasolar, like here in the solar system, like maybe on like, Ganymede or Io or Europa or something of that nature. That's why I was curious. Is like where he was going with that. Does he hypothesize it came from Jupiter's moon? So,
but to JL, to cows and chickens, we are extremely complex, and we are also the greatest invaders and the greatest killers of their species, right? More than any other force on Earth, and yet we are more they can't even comprehend our abilities. I'm just saying, if we could just be the next cattle for alien conquerors. But
I'm not on the V side. I'm on the Arrival side. That's the one, and
listen,
not the Charlie Sheen one. Even though I love that movie, I'm on the
Mexican Congress validates my research. You will rue this day, JL Warren, and I'll make sure of that. So anyway, Daniel, sorry to cut you off there. I know you probably had some more stuff to say, but we got to wrap things up on our end of the show. I enjoy hearing from you, Daniel. Thanks so much for calling in and giving us your takes. I like hearing Daniel's takes because I obviously fundamentally disagree. But this time, I get to give JL Warren the runaround. So thank you.
If I ever get the chance to do it again, and I hear from Daniel, I would like Daniel to really try to like explore this. Like, look at what we have in the solar system. Hypothesize.
You should hear our other calls. We've talked about it before.
Hypothesize where it may come from. Try to develop something from this. Instead of just positing, I think this is what it is. Go further.
It's bug people on Mars. Literally bug people on Mars. That's what we talked about before. Yeah. Daniel says that there's bug people on Mars, and that NASA's trying to cover it up. And I love that for him. I say, yeah, more power to you, King. Speak truth to power. You know what I mean?
Bug people.
Let's do it. Mars. Yeah, bug people on Mars. It is a fascinating idea. But that is all the time we have for fascinating ideas tonight, folks. If you're going to contact us in any way, you can do that in a couple different ways. You can, of course, leave a comment and answer our question of the week, but you can also email the show. It's truth@atheist-community.org. You can reach out on TV at atheist-community.org, and you can see what's going on our website at atheist-community.org. So that is something that you should definitely check out. And if you ever said to yourself, I really like this show, but I want to see the other shows, and not only do I want to see the other shows, I want to see them 24/7 for the rest of my life. I don't know about the rest of your life, but for at least the foreseeable future, you can do that if you go to our 24/7 live streams. It's at tiny.cc/AXPTV and tiny.cc/HeathenTV to see Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's usually a chat in there as well that's pretty lively. So check that out if you are interested in seeing episodes new and old. And as we are going out of the show, I want to give a big thank you to JL Warren for being on the show today. JL Warren, you were great. JL Warren was doing some crazy radio voice stuff earlier before the show. And I was like, that'd be cool if he did the entire show that way, but you didn't. You just talked like a normal human being, which I respect, but I
appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think it developed over because I have a podcast where I talk about scary movies, and I think I think that's where I pretty much developed it, is talking about these movies in an informative way. But I don't know if I could keep that up for an entire. Well, maybe I could. I should try it next time. See if I can. I think you should. Personal challenge. I can do that.
Where can people find you at if they want to see more of your stuff?
So if you'd like to see my stuff, you can check me out at JL Warren. That's at JL Warren on YouTube. If you want to follow my Twitter, I'm also on Twitter at JL Warren. You can also check me out if you like. This is totally opposite, different from what I normally do. But if you like scary movies, check me and my filmmaker friends over at the Week in Horror podcast, which is at Week in Horror. You can find that on YouTube as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We just deep dive scary movies. So if you dig those, check that out. But if you like philosophy, religion, science, and debunking, silly claims and irrational claims and all kinds of nonsense, definitely check me out at JL Warren, which is Bridge the Divide, which is my YouTube channel.
Awesome. And folks, if you like this conversation, we're going to keep having it. We're going to go to the Atheist Community of Austin Discord server for just a little bit. It's actually the ACD Discord server. It's not the Atheist Community of Austin Discord server. It's the ACD Discord server. Links to that in the description, tiny.cc/ACD Discord. Go to that because we are going to be chilling for a little bit of time for the after show. But before we do that, I have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that helped make this happen every single week. Look at that crew and the cats. We got the crew and the cats. Cats are very vital to the production of this show.
Gotta have a supervisory process. You've got
Say it all the time. Say it all the time. Yeah, absolutely. And also, we want to reiterate our prompt for this week, which is complete the sentence. The hardest part about being a ghost is blank. Leave your comment below, and we will read the top 3 answers next week. But for now, that is going to be it, everybody. I am peacing out for tonight. I am Objectively Dan. This has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.